And let's get started. So, welcome to day 2 of this game development course in Godot. Today we're going to be covering 2D coordinates and scenes. So we're going to go over coordinates and then we're going to cover scenes a bit. So let's get started. So we're going to start by doing a bit of a review. So if you guys want in chat, you guys can give answers to any of these that you know. Just number them. Oh, number 7, how do you write an if statement? Blah, 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 right? It's okay if you can't get all of them. Just write some of them down. We want to do some review. Alright, Skylar, yeah. So, a variable is something that can change. It can also store values. So, that's right, it stores values and it changes. Number 2 is how do you declare a variable in Godot? So, it's just, is there like a keyword you gotta use? Is there, you gotta write it in a specific place? How's that happen? Number 3 is what is a function? 4 is how do you define a function? Yeah, Hadar. Yeah, is that how I don't know if I'm saying your name right. But yeah, that's right. Skylar, you're also right. Yeah, you gotta use the var keyword. 3, what is a function? Number 4 is then how do you define a function, right? Yeah, pretty much. It's something that can do something, pretty much. Yeah. Right. And how do you define that function? It's func. Yeah, exactly. Use that keyword and then you put the name and any arguments, right? You all remember arguments and return values. We'll talk about return values today. We didn't go too much into that last class. Number 5, what are nodes in Godot? And then number 6, what is an if statement and how do you write it? Number 7. If you want, you could even just pull up the slides from last class and copy those. You're really smart. Because I have definitions for almost all of these on that slide. Alright. What about number 8? What is a Boolean expression? Or just what's a Boolean variable kind of? So what is that? None. Okay. Alright, let's start from 5. So 5 nodes are the building blocks of anything we want. The smallest building blocks we have in Godot. Last class we covered sprite nodes, right? Those are the only nodes we really worked with. But we'll be using many today. If statement. What is an if statement? So an if statement is a statement that controls a syntax that makes it so that something is only carried out when a certain thing is met. Right, exactly. And then you just use the if keyword, as Skylar said, to write that if statement. Oh yeah, syntax. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So you use the if keyword, and then you put your condition, and then you do a colon after. And then last but not least, Boolean expression. It's used in conjunction with if statements. It's a true or false value, right? It can be a variable type, just like numbers and phrases. You can also have a Boolean that's true or false. Alright, but that's our review. Good stuff. Just want to make sure we're remembering what we learned. But let's learn a new thing. Let's learn something new. So we're gonna talk about vectors. So if you guys are in higher level math, you might know what vectors are, or if you took a math class that's outside of school, you might know what vectors are. But who is Vector and what is he doing with coordinates? We have this image of Vector from Despicable Me. Just a reference there. Anyone knows that. But a vector is essentially a type of variable that stores multiple numbers. Vectors can be used to store coordinates in this way because if you remember, we have 2 numbers for a 2D coordinate. We'll talk about coordinates more, but a coordinate requires 2 numbers, especially a 2D coordinate requires 2 numbers, the x position and the y position. So for 2D coordinates, Godot uses a variable called a vector2, right? 2 numbers in a vector. because it stores two numbers, one for the x position and one for the y position. Vectors can also be used to store the direction of something, but we may get into that later. We won't talk about it too much today. But let's talk about coordinates a bit. So these are some drawings I made in Paint. So you'll see that on the right we have the usual coordinate plane, right? If you've come across a coordinate plane in math class, you have the y-axis, which goes up and down, and up is positive y, down is negative y. Then we have x, which is side to side, and I don't know if this is going to show up great on the camera. I think this is the right way. So right is positive x, left is negative x. And then, but in Godot, y is actually flipped. So up is actually negative y, down is positive y. The reason for this is because Godot, so Godot starts its coordinates at the top left of the screen, and then goes back and goes down, right? It makes the most sense for most computers. Most programs use this concept when you're programming them, when you're actually programming the program. All the coordinates start from the top left and then go all the way to the end. And they increase as you go down and you go to the right. Any questions on that? No? Alright. So with that being said, let's hop into Godot. Okay, so we're gonna create a new project. This project is going to be called. Second. Okay. So this project is going to be called, just create a new project. We're going to call this day 2. And we are going to put it in our Godot projects folder. Let's create folder. And let's select OpenJL ES 2.0 as always. Just the faster render, so we don't need to worry about running into graphics issues too much. Alright, once we do that, you can click create and edit. And we'll open up Godot. Alright, what are we going to do now? So, this is our mission. Let me bring this up really quick. This is what we're doing. We are going to make like a sprite or a node that can be moved and dropped by clicking and dragging the mouse. It might seem that this is very easy, but there's a bit more nuance to it than just making it, right? You have to get the right node. So let's do this. So we're gonna add a new node. So click the white plus sign, and we're gonna search up area 2D. We're gonna get this one right here. Area 2D. Then double click, or you can click create down here. And then let's give this a collision shape. So with this clicked, with the area 2D selected, we're gonna click the white plus to add a child node to it, and we're gonna search up collision shape. This one right here, that's a little square. Then click create. And then let's also add a sprite to this. So make sure you have area 2D selected. You don't want the collision shape selected. We want to make sure this sprite is a child of the area 2D, not the collision shape. So click the plus, search up sprite, and there we have our sprite. Right. Does everyone have this right now? Is everyone falling behind? I don't want to leave people behind. Alright. So what we're going to do now is we are going to give this sprite a texture so we can actually see it. So we're going to just use the Godot icon like we did before. So we're going to get this icon.png at the bottom left of the file system. Drag that into the texture property for the sprite. There we go. We have our sprite like before. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do something with this collision shape. Because he's like, what does this do? I don't know. Right, let's figure this out. So the collision shape represents kind of like an area that an area 2D will detect in. So we'll talk about area 2Ds more. But essentially this defines a region of space that, for example, here in area 2D we'll use. We'll have other nodes that will also use collision shapes to define like a certain area, like the hitbox of a character, right? So we create this collision shape 2D. Then let's go to the shape property on the right. We're gonna click this. We're gonna click the drop down, and we're gonna select new rectangle shape. It's gonna give us a rectangular shape, and what you might need to do to actually see the collision shape appearing over your sprite is go on the left in your scene, take the sprite, and put it right above the collision shape. So you see these arrows. I'm gonna put the line. Sorry, we're gonna make the line between the area 2D and the collision shape, and that's gonna put our sprite above the collision shape in the hierarchy, and it's gonna make our collision shape show up here. You see there's like a little light blue a box around our icon. Let's make this a bit bigger. So scale it up. And what you might notice, okay, is that you can't really fit this too well. You can't fit this like perfectly. And this is fine for now for like this because this is just an example, right? We're just learning. But let's say we want to make sure that this actually fits our sprite, like snaps the edges of it. What you can do is click Smart Snap. Sorry, not Smart Snap, but click this icon right here in our toolbar, Grid Snap, and my grid snap is set to snap to every 8 pixels, I believe. So this should snap to the edges of the Godot icon. If your snap settings are different, sorry, yeah, okay, I'll do that again. So we're gonna go. Let me actually draw it. So we're gonna go and click this button right here. Right. And you click that, you'll see a grid appear. And you can resize your collision shape and you'll have snapping on. So that way your shape will snap to the grid and it'll be right on the Godot icon. If that makes sense. If that's not working for you, you can optionally turn this off. Go to click the 3 dots and use pixel snap. That'll just snap it to every pixel. But I'll just be using this for now. All right. Then let's attach a script to this, right? We want to code this. So let's click on our area 2D node. We're gonna click the script icon. Oh, you can't see the collision shape. It might be because you see on the left, my sprite is actually above my collision shape. You gotta make one of, if the collision shape is above your sprite, you won't see it. Yeah, it is. Or do you see it now? Is it working? No, it's not working. Okay. Well, you can try to click on your collision shape and just match the dots. You see the dots you can use. You can try to match the dots from behind the sprite. If that doesn't work, we can try to help you out at the end of class. Yeah, or you can ask June for help. All right. So I'm gonna click the area 2D. I'm gonna click the script icon, and then we are going to just create this. Oh, you found the solution. Nice. All right. And we are gonna delete everything in our script besides this little extends area 2D at the top. So I'm gonna select everything, delete, and we're gonna leave this extends area 2D. Now what we're gonna do, sorry, what we're gonna do is we are going to, with our area 2D selected, we're going to go all the way to the right. I'm going to annotate this. I'm going to click on node, this icon right here. Click on that, and then we are going to select body. Oh no, sorry. We're going to collect mouse entered right here. This one right here. So click that, right click, then click on connect. And then this window is going to pop up, and it's going to ask us to connect whatever this is. I'll talk about this later in 1 or 2 slides. And we're going to connect it, make sure that our area 2D is selected, and then click connect. And you'll see that it creates a new function for us. And what this function is that whenever, right, we connected mouse entered to this function. So whenever the mouse enters the area 2D, this will be triggered. This function will be called. So right now, we're just going to create a variable called mouse inside at the top here. And then whenever our mouse is inside, or whenever inside this function, whenever this function triggered, we're going to set mouse inside equal to true. So, everyone have this code. I'm going to share the slides again. Yeah, okay. So, can you do it again? I'll bring the code up after I explain this. Don't worry. All right. So signals. So what we just did was connect a signal to our area 2D node, right? We connected the mouse entered signal to a function in our area 2D script. A signal is essentially a message that a node can send out when triggered, and any nodes that are connected to that signal will have a function called. It keeps on lagging. Okay. Godot has a lot of useful. Yes, that shouldn't be the issue. The render should not be the issue. Okay. So Godot has a lot of useful signals, as I was saying, that we can use. We can also create our own signals. We'll talk about this another day when we make a more complex game. But just know that Godot has many signals built into its nodes that you can use, especially the area 2D here. You click on the area 2D and you look at all these signals. We will be using these a lot later when we try to make a game with a player that's picking up coins, or spawning in coins, right? For now, we're just using this simple mouse entered signal just to check when the mouse is inside our area. That's the code we have. And also, it's important to note that you will have this little green arrow next to your function. That's telling you that it's connected to a signal. If you don't have that, then you did something wrong. Or maybe try saving and reload. Next step, let's go. So we connected to the mouse entered signal. Let's connect the mouse exited signal now. So we're gonna go to our area 2D and go on the right, and you're gonna go to where you see mouse exited. We did same thing with mouse entered. So we're gonna right click on mouse exited, click on connect. This window will pop up again. Just click connect. And the green arrow should pop up again. And inside this function, we're simply gonna set mouse inside equal to false. Right. So we're now using these functions to track whether our mouse is inside the sprite or not. So we can use this to, as we said, what was our mission before? We were trying to make our sprite being clicked and dragged across the screen. So, did you get it to work, Alfred? Still having issues. I'll show the next step now. So I'm gonna just go up here in line 4. Maybe your line is different, that's fine. I'm gonna make some space and I'm gonna write func process enter. So as we talked about before, we used process earlier last class. Process is called every frame, right? It's continuously called. So we can use this to check whether our mouse is clicking, right? Every frame we can check if our mouse is clicking, and then in conjunction with this variable, we can check whether the mouse is also inside the area 2D. So inside the process function, I'm going to write this code. Inputs.is mouse button pressed, button left, and mouse inside. Colon, enter, position, global underscore mouse, get global mouse position. We just added this code. And who can tell me what this code does? Or just a guess at what it does. Grabs the sprite, yeah. Right. And right, yeah, that's pretty much it, right? You can grab the sprite with your mouse now. So this input.is mouse button pressed, button left. This checks whether the mouse is being clicked, left click is being pressed. And what this and does is this is really what Boolean expressions are good for, right? You can check multiple conditions at once. You can check if we're clicking the mouse button and if the mouse is inside. So this essentially evaluates to one big Boolean. But yeah, so this if statement will check two conditions, whether the mouse is inside and we're clicking the mouse button, and then we're setting the position of this area 2D, which is a vector 2, which you just learned about, right? A vector 2 which stores a 2D coordinate and sets that to the 2D coordinate of our mouse. So let's test this out, right? Let's click the clapboard to play the scene. And it's going to ask us to save. So let's save this. Let's try this out. So your sprite is going to be in the corner, top left. We're going to click on that. And you can now move this around. You'll see that if you move your mouse too fast, it actually, like you detach from it. Like your mouse won't follow your mouse if you go too fast. But yeah, you can now grab your sprite and move it around. Depending on how big you made your collision shape, so this should be working for everyone. If it's not, it could be there's multiple places where you could have gone wrong, but pretty cool. Does anyone need the code? No? Yes? Okay, high odds. It's teleporting. I'm not sure about that. Make sure you have code is down there, guys. Okay, let's play this again. Should not it will teleport, by the way. So if you're clicking like the corner of the sprite, it'll teleport to the center because we're setting the position of the area 2D to our mouse, and the position is at the center of that area 2D. That's why you see it like teleport. Right. So this should be working for everyone. Let's do a quick recap of what we just did. So we accomplished our mission, right? Remember our mission was to make a sprite, very simple sprite that could be clicked and dragged across the screen. So we learned about signals, right? Signals are like messages a node can send out to trigger events in code for other nodes. Here, we just use a signal to trigger a event or a function in a node itself. So like we didn't actually go to other nodes. But we use signals to track whether the mouse was inside or the area 2D, and then every frame we would check if left click was also pressed, and then if both were true, we would set the mouse position. We would set the position of the node to the mouse position. And lastly, we used the area 2D nodes. They need a collision shaped 2D node attached to them to define the region of space they occupy, right? Or where that area is. So, with that done, let's talk about scenes versus nodes. So we kind of talked about scenes versus nodes a little bit last class, but let's go a little deeper. We've looked at nodes a lot. Let's teleport. The code does not work. Alright. Not sure. Try copy pasting the code I put. Are you getting an error? Perhaps you're getting an error. No. Alright, well, you'll have to show me it later. It's all bunched up. Oh, I see. Oh yeah, the copy pasting does not work too great. Yeah. Let me see if I can put it into a better area. You can just try to copy the code. I yeah, I'll bring up the code for a second here, so you can copy. While you're doing that, I'm going to. Alright, so you guys should have the code. Don't. I've made a link. Okay, you guys should have the code. It's right, but it's still teleporting. That's interesting. We'll talk about that maybe at the end of class. You'll see if you can fix that. But we gotta move on. So, let's talk about scenes versus node. Yeah, I was thinking that, but we don't have time for that right now. Let's move on. So, as we talked about before, nodes can be attached to each other as like parent and children nodes, and they are arranged to create a tree of nodes, kind of like a family tree, right? You have like a head node is the parent, and then you have little children, and then you have children of the children, children of the children, right? Grandchildren. And so this tree of nodes that we make can get really complex. I know it does, Alfred. I'll find a solution. Okay, so this tree of nodes. So this tree of nodes can be then saved as a scene that we can reuse later, right? We can it's essentially like copy and pasting it's like a function, but for an entire like node, right? An entire like scene. This entire tree of nodes, we can then copy paste and put it somewhere else without having to make that same structure again. Alright. I'm uploading the code really quick. Okay, here it is. That should work for you. But let's talk more about scenes. So any single project we make can have as many scenes as we want, but only one scene will be the main scene, right? That is the scene that will be our game will run from. All right, and however, even though we can only have one main scene, we can still switch between scenes, loading and reloading during the game. We won't talk about much during this course because we'll be creating simple games with only one main scene, and then we'll like have our player scene inside that, or the coins. So for example, we could create a single coin scene and then instance or copy these coins around our game. We could also create a bow, an instance, an arrow scene whenever we want to shoot our bow, right? Because we don't want to. It would be difficult. Uh, it'd be difficult without scenes, right? So our mission now is to make the area 2D spawn in at the cursor by pressing the spacebar. So we're gonna be using the code we had before, but we'll just now be actually spawning in nodes with our spacebar. So let's do this. Let's go to the Godot, and we're gonna be starting by creating a new scene. The way we do that is we're gonna click this plus here, the like middle, these tabs right here. So we have area 2D. We're gonna go to the right of that and click the plus, and it's gonna give us an empty scene. All right, we'll see you later, Alfred. You can watch the recording. All right, we'll go to 2D scene and just click on 2D scene, and it's gonna give us a scene. All right, bye, Alfred. It's gonna give us a scene with a no 2D, and let's save this. Yeah, I'll do that again. So you have area 2D. Let's go click the plus, bit to the right. I'll annotate this right here. That. And then we are going to click on 2D scene. And this is going to pop up. If you go to 2D now, you'll see that our sprite is gone and we have kind of an empty workplace or empty scene. We're going to rename this node 2D to be main. Control S to save. And that's a good name. Just save. And we're going to attach a script to main now. This is going to control the spawning of each icon, right, or each area. So we're going to click on main selected. We're going to click on this add script icon, create scripts, and then like before, we're going to delete everything in this because you don't need it except the extends node 2D. That's important so that Godot knows what the script is for, right? This is for node 2D. Alright, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a export variable. So export, and we're going to, 2 parentheses, packed scene. It's important that you spell this correctly. It needs to be right capitalization. And we are going to call this variable area scene. Just like that. What this will do is it'll allow us to get a reference, right? Variables not only provide a way to store values, but also store a reference to something. So if we save our script now and go click on main node, go back to the inspector, you'll see that you have a new script variable called area scene. And what we can do is go to your file system at the bottom left, look for your area 2D scene, click and drag this into that field right there. And so now our main script, right, the script that we're going to use to spawn in our area 2D actually knows what it needs to spawn in, right? We're going to be using this variable, right? This is a scene variable now. This entire variable stores that scene, and we can use these to spawn them. Let's do that. Before we do that, let's talk about input events. So we're gonna go to project, click project settings. Then this window's gonna pop up with a bunch of properties. It's overwhelming, I know. But we're just gonna go to the tabs at the top. You see these? And we are clicking on input map. Alright. Click on input map, and then you'll see there's a couple actions already here. So all of these little categories are called actions. You can collapse them or like minimize them so you don't have to see everything. But these are all input actions, they're called. You can click into this little text bar to create a new action. So we're gonna call this just space, or spawn, sorry. We're gonna call this spawn. And we're gonna click right here, add. So add this new action. You'll see at the bottom. You might need to scroll down. And then we gotta go to the right and click this little plus icon. Add event. And we are gonna click on key. And then it's gonna ask us to press a key. I'm just gonna press the space key. And I'm gonna click OK. And so what this does is it creates a action that we can use just like we've been doing. It's an action that can be like checked. We can check if this action is being pressed. And we could map multiple different actions or multiple different events like pressing space or pressing like A even on like a Nintendo Switch, right? If we're creating this game for multiple different platforms, we can have multiple controls that trigger the same event for like jumping or anything else. So they also provide us with some more functionality than just that, and I'll be showcasing that soon. So let's close out of this, and then let's enter. Let's create some new lines. I'm going to create the process function in here. And I'm going to type if input dot action just pressed spawn colon, and then I'll just type pass for now. Pass is just a how to make screen. What does that mean? Alright. What this does now is it checks if the space key is just pressed, right? It's not checking if it's being held down, it's checking if it's got tapped, or if you hold it down, it'll only be triggered once. This allows us for more functionality as we talked about. If you were to try to just do is key pressed, you can't do is key just pressed. There's only is key pressed. Alright. So let's continue with this code. We're going to create a new variable inside this if statement. And we're going to name it area scene.instance. So we're creating a new instance of this scene. We're creating like a copy of this scene. And it's being called area. And then for this area to actually appear, we need to add it as a child of main. So main is going to add child area. Oh yeah, I'll share the code at the end once it's all done. And then lastly, we are going to set the position of the area equal to mobile mouse position. Now you may be a little confused about this like dot and this dot here. So dot, whenever we have like a reference to something, for example our area here, or even our area scene, we type the dot to access the properties and the functions that it has. So I know area has a position property, so I'm gonna get area, I get the position of the area. I know the scene has an instance function because it's just a pack scene. That's a built-in function that Godot has, and we're gonna instance it. So instance area scene. I'll give you the code now. So it should be on the same document I shared earlier. And before you run this code, you have to make sure, we already did this, but just to make sure, you have to make sure that on the right, within your script variables, you actually set this to your Area's 2D scene. Let's click play. And that's going to ask us to set a, it's going to ask, so by default, we've been pressing this little clapboard icon. But we're going to click this play icon right here. So that's just the arrow. And it's going to ask us to, it's going to say no main scene has ever been defined, select one. You can change it later in the project setting on the application CAD. So let's just click select current. So our current scene is main. So it's going to make the main scene the main scene. Let's try this out. You can now, so I'm pressing the spacebar right now, and I'm spawning in our nodes, our Area 2D scene. And then we can move them around using our mouse, right? And whenever we hover over more of them, they'll kind of like collect up into like one giant Area 2D. This. You can spawn more and more and more. Around the mouse and clicking. They are all in the corner. So, do you have this line? Area dot position equals get global mouse position. Because if I delete this line really quick, I try it. They're all gonna spawn in the corner. That's really strange. We're almost done with our code, so I'll have some time to help you out. Okay. So one other thing to note, right? We made this the main scene, but one thing to note is that any other scene that you create, uh, won't be run. The code won't run. The nodes won't work unless they're inside the main scene or the scene that's being currently run, right? This Area 2D is practically useless in our program if we never actually instance it, right? So we need to instance it to actually put it to use, just like a function, right? If you make a function, but we never call it, it's useless. Or, I mean, it's not useless, but we're just not taking use of it, right? Same thing with a variable. If we make a variable and we don't use it, the value's just sitting there doing nothing. Same thing with scenes. Alright, so what you guys can do now is I'm gonna give you some time. I'll help out people who are stuck. Play around with this code. Try to maybe make another scene. There's like this Area 2D, but make maybe the sprite a little different, or you can use the same sprite, make it a little smaller. Make the collision shape something else. Make it like a circle. Do that. Or you can change the code around so that it follows your mouse only when, I don't know, the Area 2D is not inside your mouse. But really, try things out. Try messing around with the code. You can try adding new input actions. But I'll help people out now. So Skylar, you need help, right? Yes, okay. So I'm gonna provide the code for you. If you don't need help, yes, we are pretty much done. Um, but what you're gonna do right now is just kind of play around with your code, and we'll come back together and kind of talk about what you guys discovered. And I'll show you some extra cool stuff at the end. But this is kind of just some independent exploration, because that's always good. It's always good to explore. So I have the script. Oh, you're gone? Alright. See you later, Hadar. If I'm saying that right. I don't want to butcher your name. But here's the code. Number one is the I'll label them. The first one is area2d.gd. Second one is main.gd. So copy paste that code into your scripts, and let me know if it's still working or if it's not working. The problem is that I put it, oh right, I see. So you put the this in the middle of the screen here, like that. Or I think perhaps what you might have done is you might have moved the collision shape like this. You think that's the issue? Because what could have happened is that, see how the sprite and collision shape all the way up here at the bottom right? The reason it affects the scripts is because, well, it doesn't really affect the script. What happens is that we are setting the position of the area 2D to the mouse position, not the, so whenever a node is a child of another node, essentially what happens is that any position is like relative to that area 2D. So when we set this, like, let's say our mouse is like right here, it's always gonna be like to the right and down of the area 2D. So if you have that, yeah, you'll have the issue. If you put the sprite up here, and I just try this out. Actually, I can't even put it there. So yeah, it's teleporting. That's because what's happening is that it's setting the position. Sorry. So the position of the area 2D is a bit to the right of this. So it's always going to move it to the right. Does that make sense? No, it's okay. I'll just explain it again. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why so child is always relative to its parent's position and rotation and scale. Alright. Some other okay, so let me show you guys some cool things you can do. I'm gonna think really quick. So what you can do with this is you could make kind of like a drawing app with this. So I'm gonna change this from just pressed to be how to type the code in. I only can. I'm not sure what your issues. Could you try to explain it a bit more? Try using the link above. That's the code. Oh, you want me to show you how to use the code? Okay. So I'll show that. I'll split screen this really quick. Okay. It's gonna be a bit cramped. Sorry. Okay, so we have our area 2D script. I'm gonna make this bigger. I have my code on the left here. I'm gonna start from the top left, extends, drag all the way to the bottom right, or all the way to false, right here. And then I'm gonna press Control C to copy. And I'm gonna select my entire script here, replace it with the code I have, with the code I just copied. So I can press Control A to select everything, backspace to delete, then Control V to paste. Same thing with main. So you go to the main script. I put a hashtag next to the name. So grab that code. Main. I'm gonna Control A, select everything, and paste, and save. Did you get that? Alright. So, before you use that code, you also need to make sure that you set your area scene variable to your area 2D scene. You just gotta drag it from the file system at the bottom left all the way to your area scene. Yeah. Okay. Let's show you guys some cool stuff you can. So let's make. So I'm gonna change this from just pressed to just being pressed, right? So if we try this now, whenever we hold space. Oh, I forgot to fix my area 2D scene. Sorry. Yeah. There we go. Let's start this, and now you see that we're kind of like drawing with our sprite. We could also move them around. Um, so I'm gonna, what I'm gonna do instead is whenever I right click, I'm actually gonna delete the sprite. So if input is mouse button press and mouse inside, and instead of mouse equals get mouse global position, I'm gonna type Q free. Q free is how you delete nodes and scenes. So whenever I delete this area 2D, all its children will also be deleted. So I can now spawn. Oh, sorry, wrong scene. I can now spawn, or like basically paint with the space key, and then I can erase with the right click. Pretty cool. Now I'll also change this from being spawn press to just being left click. So never button left. So essentially this is a very simple drawing app, right? We're painting with Godot icons, and we're erasing with right click. What else can I show you guys? We could do it so that okay. So not sure what we can do. For now, I guess you guys can do some independent exploration, but I'll also explain for very short assignment. It's very short, very short. So this homework, is just to prepare us for next class. You need to download these game assets. I will provide this link in chat right now. But you'll need to download these game assets, and we'll be using these to make a over the course of the next 3 classes. We'll actually be making a game instead of just making these like fun little gadgets where we can like draw or rotate our sprites, move them around. We'll be making a full-on game, and that'll be really fun. So we need those game assets. Nothing too crazy. There's like 3 different pixel art assets I made for that game. But I guess we can end it a little early since we kind of zoomed through our class today. You guys, you want to stick around, ask any questions, you guys are free to. I'll stay around for about 15 minutes, answer any questions. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. But you guys are free to go. We ended class a little early this time, so ask questions. You guys can go wherever you want. Right, that's a wrap.